Hello crafters, Nicole here, and I'm so glad to be sharing some inspiration with you. In the last few weeks, I've been having some fun with shaker cards and was truly surprised to hear from so many of you that you've never tried the style. So in this video, I'll help you through two different and really cool shaker card styles, both based on a great new sketch. Welcome to Sketch Starters with Nicole. First, let's take a look at the sketch inspiration. As you can see, there's this really interesting rounded corner element with a strip to indicate a sentiment element. This is a great opportunity to do a cutout shaker with the newest Altenew craft of flower, the Antique Rose. But first, I had another really interesting idea for a shaker and was hoping that it would come together for you, and it did. I'm so excited because this is a shaker that has no foam strips and no acetate, but more on that in a little bit. To start off, let's create the floral elements for the rounded corner area. I always consult the layering guide first, so I know if the layers go light to dark or dark to light. I'm going to create my own shaded cardstock to match my chosen color palette. So I'm starting off with white cardstock, and I'm going to add in charcoal soot ink to create a beautiful gray rose. In looking at the layering guide, the darkest layers are at the back of the flower, and I'll keep that in mind as I create this simple ombre blend in the cardstock with just this single color. This is a really easy way to get a custom monochrome look. Blending like this will create nice, soft layers and a dreamy, soft look to the finished flower. I'm using a thicker white cardstock, so the finished flower will end up more chunky, adding some extra dimension to each layer. I'm going to do the same technique for the leaves, except I'm going to blend both Forest Glades and Evergreen inks. The Forest Glades brightens up the Evergreen a little bit and blends beautifully since they're both a part of the same Green Fields ink family. I'll start with Forest Glades in the center, blending out to each end, and then I'm adding in Evergreen here on each end, blending into the center. Since I consulted the layering guide, I'll be able to plan my blend so I can get the dyes into just the right areas on this blended sheet. Now let's move on to this shaker element. I'm using the Blushing Blooms paper pack for backgrounds on both cards. I love the modern yet classic feel to this paper set. We'll be creating the shaker with the framed thanks die and Tulle. To keep that frame nice and straight, I'm using the negative frame from the rounded rectangle die set as a template. I have my chosen pattern paper already adhered to a top fold card base, so the next step is to put that template in place so I can build out the shaker. I used the hexagon pattern to make sure my template is centered and square, and just using some post-it tape, now I've got everything in place. So I added some double-sided adhesive sheets to both the front and back of a piece of 100-pound white cardstock. Then I die cut that framed thanks die. This is what I'm using instead of foam strips to provide that height for the shaker contents. It's not much of a space, but the tool will flex a little bit, allowing the shaker contents to move. I'm definitely taking my time here, removing the center portion of the die cut as I want to make sure that my frame stays intact. Once ready, I placed the frame on the card base, pushing the edges gently up against the template. I tried to keep the adhesive sheet backing in place on the top as long as I could, but it really did just want to come off. So overall, it wasn't an issue as the adhesive sheets are sticky enough, but not so sticky that it becomes unruly to work with. So I pulled the backing off, made some final adjustments, and then removed the template. So next here, I'm adding in satin white sequins. Probably not as much for a typical shaker card because there's not as much space without the height of those foam strips, but it'll be enough for this look. I'm trying to be as careful as I can to keep it from sticking to the exposed adhesive, but I do manage to get some sequins above the thanks sentiment too, and just have to do a little fidgeting to get those sequins in a good position. So the next step here is to add the piece of tulle over the sequins. I have this piece cut larger than the space, and in the end, I'll just do a rough cut around the edges. The tulle sticks easily and the adhesive covered die cut, so I'm really pleasantly surprised. I'm able to press the tulle down and it doesn't pull up as I move my hands around the edges. To sandwich the tulle in place, I have a final framed thanks die cut done up in some gold foil cardstock and more adhesive sheet on the back of that for easy adhering. All I have to do is place it right over the other frame and press. Again, I'm taking my time here, really pressing down as I go to make sure that all of the frames and the tulle are stuck together and also stuck on the card base. This was truly an experiment and it totally played off because it looks amazing. And as you can see, it works with all of those shaker bits staying contained and in place. To finish it off, I'm doing that rough trim around the edges. Really, this card is totally impressive right now. I mean, what more could we do to it? Oh yeah, there's still the sketch and those die cut flowers. So I have the flower and the leaves completely assembled and they are gorgeous. As you can see, there's lots of depth to the leaves because I used 100-pound cardstock, and check out that soft blend. The leaves look equally lovely, and the single die cut leaf element even has a little bit of an embossed look to the center that's very subtle. I'm using the sketch to help arrange this corner element. First, I'm going to place everything to get an idea of how it will all fit. And I'm going to decide here to glue the leaves directly to the card base. One thing to be careful about when creating a tulle shaker is adding the additional elements that may overlap the shaker area. Of course, the adhesive will go through the tulle and stick to the base below. So it's a good idea to move those shaker contents out of the way so they don't get stuck in a corner somewhere. So I'm adding in all of my little floral elements here. The leaves are going on the edge, and at the bottom here, I made sure that it didn't extend past the end of the card. But on the sides, I'm going to allow this to go over the edge, and I'll make a decision later whether I cut those off or I keep them in place. So I've got my leaves in place now. And then for the flower, I'm going to pop that up on some foam adhesive. So the same warning applies here. The flower is going to overlap some of that shaker area, so I need to get the sequins out of the corner, otherwise it will be lost forever. So you can see there's a lot of sequins in that corner, and I place the flower down gently, and I just kind of push on the outside there, and then I'm going to shake out those sequins pieces to get them out of the way. And there we go. So now that the card is done, I can address that edge and decide if I'm going to leave the overhanging leaves and the flower. But I'm going to keep it in place, as I can always put this in a larger envelope. I can hand deliver it or put it inside a package where it won't need an envelope. Sometimes it's nice to have those little bits hanging off the edge. Are you enjoying this project? Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click the bell for notifications. On to the second shaker style, a shaped shaker. This one is actually easier than the first project, but it's just as impactful. So I'm flipping the sketch on its side for a landscape arrangement. The corner element will still be in the lower left, but this will allow the sentiment to draw closer to the shaker element. I've got another pattern background from the Blushing Blooms paper pack, and this time I'll use acetate and foam strips for the shaker. I only need 2 layers of the flower since I want to see those shaker elements behind the flower. This time I added double-sided adhesive sheet to the back of the ombre cardstock to make the layers easy to adhere, and to adhere to the window sheet without any adhesive mess. So I'm starting here with the assembly process by adhering the die cut flowers to each other, so those 2 layers together, so they're ready to go onto the acetate in a few minutes. I used the outline die to make the hole for the shaker portion of the card. Can you see how this is going to come together? Then I placed my leaves where I wanted them to go and taped down the outline die back in place so I could die cut the edges off the leaves. Those complete layers went through my die cut machine and cut through, which was really awesome. So now I have this seamless effect that will make it look like the leaves are behind the flower. I was able to remove those inside bits and discard them, and this element's ready to go too. So to pop in a bit of contrast, I'm going to add in some light ink blending to the shaker opening. I used Rouge and my large ink blending tool to add just a light blush to that space. Now I can assemble the shaker in the card base. This is pretty straightforward if you've done a shaker card before. I'm adding adhesive around the flower and the edges of the acetate sheet, and I get that all nice and glued down. I like to use liquid adhesive because even though the acetate is non-porous, I find that it sticks better than tape runner or double-sided tape. Next, foam adhesive strips go all the way around the card base in order to minimize the amount of sequins needed. I'm going to add some extra strips around the flower, so this is the only place that sequins mix will need to go. A small pile of satin white sequins is all I need. I place that pile where the window will be, then remove all of those backing strips and adhere the panel to the card base. If you live in a dry environment, sometimes shaker mixes can get a bit staticky. You can help reduce the static by adding some anti-static powder to the mix or brushing it over the acetate sheet. Just be sure to wipe the sheet clean and keep it nice and crystal clear. And voila, the shaker element is complete on this project. To finish the card, I'll place the remaining flower layers over the acetate. The layers are easy to match up as it generally follows the outline of the base layer, so it fits in like a perfect puzzle piece. The sequins are visible in the background and add such a fun element to this design. Adding the leaves in is actually pretty easy too. Just a bit of adhesive on the backs, and then I'll be able to place those right in place. I had thought of using the double-sided adhesive sheets for this as well, but I was concerned that yet another layer would make it too thick to go through my die cut machine. So I just opted for some liquid adhesive, and it worked out fine. Because I used the liquid adhesive, I ended up with some wiggle room. So as I removed the die from the pieces here, I was able to just kind of move them around and shift them and get them right up to the edge. And as you can see now, it looks totally seamless, like those are tucking out from behind the flower. Of course, I can't neglect the strip element from the sketch, so I have a gold foil die cut sentiment from the Signature Words die. I use the double-sided adhesive sheets again, as that makes it so easy to adhere these delicate die cuts. If you didn't love them before because you thought they were messy to adhere, definitely give them a try with some double-sided adhesive sheets and they will be brand new to you. To finish off the project and pull the sequins through, I'm adding a few extra sequins around the sentiment in my typical narrow triangular pattern. I generally place the sequins first to make sure that I have them well balanced, and then I come back and adhere them with the 2-in-1 glue pen. And there we have it, 2 beautiful ideas for some unusual shaker cards. I hope these 2 projects inspire you to give shaker cards a try. If they're an old favorite of yours, these are 2 brand new ways for you to add some shaker elements to your cards in an unexpected way. When you give your next shaker card a try, don't forget to share it out on social media and hashtag us at Altenew LLC and at Pixel Mavens Retreat. We would love to see everything that you're creating and how you've been inspired by this series. I'll be back soon with more amazing craft techniques and, of course, sketches too. But until then, happy crafting. Help support my craft education efforts by giving this video a thumbs up and clicking on the subscribe button and bell so you'll get notified when I create new content just for you. If you're looking for some more crafty inspiration, how about one of these videos?